Welcome, everybody. It is Sunday morning. It is week 4. It's time for the Blitz. Man, we're excited. We're back. There's still so many damn injuries that we weren't ready for. We're gonna get everything you need to know today, right now, in 30 seconds. And with that, we are back. We are ready to go, man. It is Sunday morning. We already got a few comments loaded up in the old hopper, man. Which doesn't shock me at all. There's a lot of injuries going on out there. There's a lot of things we're doing that we're not liking that we're having to do. Me, for instance, I'm in the Scott Fish Bowl, and if it wasn't for Snoop Huntley hopping on the Dolphins today, I would be going into week 4 without a quarterback. Anybody who's been following along, I have had no quarterback since week 1. I've streamed with Malik Willis twice, and now we're rolling with Snoop Hunter. This has also cost me all of my fab. So ask me anything today. No, just kidding. On my left, we got Joe. Joe, how we doing this morning?
Oh, why am I? I don't mind changing positions every once in a while, but I'm a little taken aback to be on the left and not on the bottom as I normally am.
Right, but down below, my man Joe just sounds so much better, right? Like,
I've gotten comfortable, but no, this is a big week. Like, to your point, I got a lot of 1 and 2 teams in fantasy, which A, I'm not used to, and B, I don't like. So I feel like this is a big week. Get some things right, get some teams right. We got some players coming back this week. And kind of right the ship. It's been such a bizarre start to the season.
Yeah, well, especially with some of the premier injuries we've had, it's just been crazy. And I mean, like the low production out of some of these players. There's a lot of things out there that kind of made it kind of not fun. And down below, we got my man Jeff. Jeff, how we doing this morning? How's it going today?
Hanging in, brother. I'm sure, Joe, I'm sure your wife can attest to your typical laziness, which is why you're usually on the bottom as opposed to the top. But I digress. Sunday morning, as always, the best morning of the week. Looking forward to getting into the questions and catching up. Even though usually we do our Saturday night show, 9 p.m., the DFS Chalk Talk. We had a couple things going on. Missed it last night. So I'm looking forward to those questions this morning.
And you're lucky she's in your shot.
Apologize there. We kind of had some issues getting into the show there, but we got her all figured out and ironed out, and we are good to go now. And so, yeah, we'll be dropping some DFS down on you as well today. But first off, we're going to go ahead and start off. We're going to kick off with some questions here.
Injuries. Let's do injuries real quick, Mikey.
I was going to say, Joe, why don't you go ahead and lead us off here with the injury report? What do we got?
Cool. So a few things happening. We got good news at quarterback today. I think the most surprising one is Jordan Love looks like he's going to play. Got to give Malik Willis some credit, though. I mean, they're 3-0, right?
Yeah.
They are 2-1.
Good the first 2 weeks. Like I said, I streamed him, and we did it good.
They're 2-1.
Yep, 2-1.
2-1. But so what? Willis went 1-1?
Yes. Yep. Jordan Love won week 1, I believe, if I remember correctly.
So Love will be back. Speculation is he's not 100%. You could see them go with a conservative game plan. I'm not sure you jump on him from a DFS perspective, but good to see him back in general. Also looks like Justin Herbert's going to play today. He's had the ankle injury. Running back, not quite as good news. The good news would be looks like Alvin Kamara is going to make it today. The bad news would be looking like Joe Mixon will not play today. It'll be another start for Cam Akers home against Jacksonville, which I feel like for Mixon would have been a really nice matchup if he was healthy. Rashad White is questionable with an illness. Looks like he will go today. We know that Austin Eckler's out. Big Brian Robinson Jr. fan this week. And I'll leave it at that at running back. And we look at wide out real quick. We know that the Ram guys are both still out. Kupp and Nakua. A.J. Brown out again for Philly. Devonta Smith out again for Philly. Johan Dotson and Dallas Goedert all of a sudden looking a little juicy this week. Devontae Adams is new. He's out this week for Vegas. Feeling good about the Cleveland defense based on that Vegas offense right now. Looking like Deebo Samuel will make it back to today for San Francisco. One other running back thing, news did come out that Christian McCaffrey is looking like he's slated for an early November return or debut. So I'd like to thank the 49ers for completely hosing the fantasy world for almost 10 weeks now by the time he comes back. Chris Olave is going to test out his hamstring in warm-ups. They're confident he will take the field today. That's a big division game for them against Atlanta. And Keenan Allen looked like he will make it back, which I'm kind of bummed about that because Odunze had such a big game last week. I was kind of looking forward to seeing him get like all the snaps again, but looks like Keenan Allen will be back. Deonta Johnson, who woke up last week and had a huge game with Andy Dalton under center, looks like he will make it on the field for Carolina home against Cincinnati. Tank Dell is out for Houston. Adam Thielen's IR'd, as we know, and I'll leave it at that. So wide receiver position is a little banged up. Real quick at the tight end position, we know that Trey McBride's out for the Cardinals. That's a big one. George Kittle will return. So the 49ers now all of a sudden have everybody back other than McCaffrey. Hawkinson's still out. Our boy, Mr. Njoku. He will be out once again this week for Cleveland. Evan Ingram out once again for Jacksonville. His replacement Strong's gotten in the end zone 2 weeks in a row, I believe. And I will leave it there, but the injuries are plentiful.
Did you call him David Njoku? That's so not how his name's pronounced, dude.
I know.
Like,
Really?
I hate to embarrass you like that, but it's pronounced Nyoko. So
I hadn't heard that rumor.
Yeah, no, actually, that's how even the Browns are pronouncing it now, if you didn't know that. You got to keep up. You got to stay with the Blitz because we're.
Well, I'll figure out every way to mispronounce that one again for my third straight year.
Yeah, no, heck yeah, no. I'm just proud of you, man. I'm proud.
It's tradition.
That's awesome. We got Njoku out. We got Trent Siberian. He says enjoying his wedding anniversary. He says glad he was able to leave it before he left. He needs 2 running backs. He's got Etienne, Robinson Jr., or Moss. Or a flex question. JSN, Jacoby Myers, running back not selected. So he'll watch the replay to see who we all decided on. And Jeff, I'm going to go ahead and let you lead this one off. I know Joe and I have already kind of tackled this a little bit.
Two running backs. I mean, Joe hit it on the head, I think, with the Eckler injury. So right away, I'd say Robinson Jr. kind of put him into your roster, onto your roster. As far as the other two, Moss and Etienne, I'm not very high on either one, but if I'm gonna have to lean one or the other, I'd say Etienne out of those. And then if we're looking at the flex option down below, just simply because of the injuries, again, Jacoby Myers is looking like a better option than not that Jackson Smith and Jigba is a bad option. He's not bad at all, especially when they're playing Detroit, and that's going to be what I assume would be a fairly high scoring game in Detroit. So I would say Etienne, Robinson Jr., and if we're looking at the flex, I want to go Jacoby Myers over Jackson Smith and Jigba. And I forget what he called him last week that we put a new nickname on him for, and I'm forgetting what that is, by the way.
I didn't realize Jacoby had such a big game last week. He went 7 for 62 and a touchdown.
Yeah, Jacoby Myers is always one of those guys that sits in there, in my opinion, all quietly. I agree with the Etienne call. I actually think that we're going to see Jacksonville, after the shellacking they took last week, I think you're going to have to see them start changing up their game plan a little bit more, slowing their offense down by running the ball a lot more. So I think you're going to see a lot bigger lean on Etienne out there. I think we're going to see him actually start being more productive on that offense. And Robinson Jr. smash into play. I think he's going to have a huge game today with Eckler out. Even with Jaden Daniels taking all the rushing touchdowns, Robinson Jr. has proven to be a pretty decent start. And I'm leaning Jacoby Myers here as well. I think Devontae Adams is out. Jacoby Myers is going to be the guy that benefits from that. And Joe, what's your opinion here?
Yeah, I think Robinson Jr. is my favorite play of the week out of this group. You know, the matchup against Arizona, no Eckler. Jr.'s been double-digit scoring every week this year. He's got 2 touchdowns. So I feel really good about him. And then, Eddie and I would go Travis here too. The funny thing about them is they've sucked, but he's still getting pretty much 15 touches a week and he's got 2 touchdowns. So, and there's no Evan Ingram there. So I feel like he's definitely the most reliable man on that offense right now. So I definitely like those two. If ever a week for Moss to get in the end zone, you'd assume it's this week against Carolina, but I don't know. All of the guys here and all of the teams are just really hard to trust from week to week. Like, you're looking at a bunch of inconsistent teams and even players, and even JSN, like, he blew up that 1 week, but kind of came back down to earth. So I would do the Jacoby Myers play on that flex also. You know, for half the season last year, he was actually as good, if not better, than Devonta Adams in Vegas. I agree with you 100%, Mikey. He's kind of built himself a nice little WR2 consistency there in Vegas, but I like him there as the number one today. So Etienne, Robinson, and Myers for me here.
Excellent. That's a three-peat. And JSN, I mean, just look at his target share. He had 3 targets week 1, 18 targets week 2, 3 targets week 3. So was that more of the onset of a weak corner that they were picking on? Because that's what those stats look like to me, is that they found a weakness in that defense. They were able to exploit it multiple times. That's why JSN fed as much as he did. But if Tyler Lockett's still out on that field, I can't rely on that guy, because, I mean, 3 targets is not a whole lot to work with, especially if you only catch 33% of those, right? 1 target, 1 catch. That could easily be a 1 for 16. That could be 2.7 points on your board in a PPR. So got to avoid that. And I understand that most of his leagues are standard, right? And salute, my man. Happy wedding anniversary for sure. I'm going to drink some Dr. Pepper, which means nothing here, right? But in the Ukraine, I believe that gets you put in the stockades, and they throw tomatoes at you for 3 days or something like that. I can't remember Ukrainian law. It's been a while since I've been in that class. We got Kevin Turner asking 12 team half PPR. Who do I flex assuming Debo plays? Debo, Lazard, or Watson? Joe, lead us off here.
Yeah, I think you got to go Debo if he plays. You know, Lazard's been funny. He's been great in the red zone. He's getting those looks, but I feel like he's really touchdown reliant from a fantasy perspective. And I want to like Watson. Like, I'm ready to jump on Watson as soon as that team is healthy again and clicking, because I saw his potential fantasy-wise with Love last year. I'm just not sure this is the week to do it over Debo with Love just coming back. They're playing Minnesota, who's been really good defensively so far.
What do you say here, Jeff?
Yeah, that's absolutely a good call, especially in that last comment there, Joe, with the Minnesota defense. And you got to give Brian Flores some credit there, man. He has turned that thing around, and maybe not necessarily the best head coach, especially according to Tua, but man, as a defensive coordinator, this guy has been a stud. So you really can't play anybody going up against that Minnesota defense right now. And yeah, Debo, if you're going Debo or Lazard, I mean, Lazard, he's like our age, I would think, at this point. I mean, he's on the team just because of Rodgers, and you got to go Debo.
I actually am leaning Lazard here. I think Lazard is
come on over Debo.
Yeah, just because, I mean, Aaron Rodgers obviously favors him as one of his
he does
higher target options out there. I don't like Adam Lazard, but I can't argue with the production that guy's been giving us on that Jets defense or offense. Debo coming in injured, I think that's great. I think they might play him on kind of a limited, maybe a decoy role. I'm with you guys as far as Christian Watson. I want to get Christian Watson going. Hold on just a damn second. Let me finish my point. And then I think Green Bay at Minnesota, that's what scares me in that instance right there. I think an injured quarterback coming back against that defense that's been firing off on all cylinders is in a void. So go ahead, Joe. Let me know.
No, I was just thinking what I was actually thinking about in my head is. What do you got, Jeff?
Well, yeah, Jeff. Sorry, I apologize.
No, Mike, do me a favor. What was Lazard's first name again?
Yeah, I got that too.
So that's how relevant this guy is. His first name is actually Alan. I think you called him Adam. If you don't know the guy's first name, don't start this freaking guy. You know, just let him sit on the bench.
That is well played.
In certain cultures, the double L has a D pronunciation. Thank you very much. So
forgot about that.
That's not on me. That's on the English language. I can't back that up. No, I did call him Adam. You're right.
I was thinking about Brian.
Again, he sucks. I think he's terrible. I think he can't catch a football, but he's been getting the lion's share of the targets there in New York. So
he is, and he's getting a lot of red zone ones. I laugh at Brian Flores. Like that's like 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, maybe 5 weeks ago that those Tua comments come out, and Flores gets verbally raped in the media for like 2 weeks straight. now this defense plays 3 good games, and like he's going to be the first head coach again next year. It's just insane how quickly the narrative can flip on these guys.
Well, especially on week one. Week one is terrible. Yeah, you almost got to shut everything off on that. So Kevin Turner, we're leaning Debo here as a team. I'm the only one shouting Lazard, but Debo is hard guy to sit. We got at Mike VA says, hey man, we got to start 2. He says, which 2 do you like the most? Non-PPR, we got Myers versus Cleveland, Shaheed at Atlanta, Michael Wilson versus Washington, Mooney versus New Orleans, or Roshan Johnson versus LA. Man, that is a mouthful. What do you got here, Jeff?
Well, let's see. So non-PPR, let's talk about, I mean, especially non-PPR, right off the bat, I would have to say Roshan Johnson, even though I don't necessarily like it, and the Bears offensive line, and correct me if I'm wrong, he's Bears running back, correct? Am I off on that?
Yep. No, okay. Bears running back behind you.
Yeah, so he and Swift are kind of the lead backs there in Chicago, but the offensive line has been so terrible. However, because of the opportunity he might have versus some wide receivers with touches, especially in a non-PPR, I'd say right away Roshan Johnson. I'm leaning that way. I'll tell you, man, Shaheed just broke my heart last week, man. All of us probably, because and I said it last week when we were on DFS Chalk Talk. I said he has done well with the opportunities he was given, because he had something like 8 targets, 6 receptions, and then had a touchdown each of the first 2 games. So he'd taken the most or gotten the most out of what was given to him, and then throws up a goose egg last week and just let us down completely, especially from a DFS standpoint. So because of that, you know what? He's on the A.J. Dillon and Tyler Boyd list. We're going to put Shaheed there. He sucks until he can turn it around. You suck. So I would say probably Myers. I'd have to lean just because of the point we brought up earlier with Devontae Adams out. I go Myers and Johnson. What do you guys think?
0 for 5, man. He was 0 for 5. He had 5 targets and did not haul in a single target last week. Very un-Rashid-like. I think Shaheed's still a guy that we can start right here. I don't like it non-PPR, though. I like Shaheed in a PPR instance. I think I'm going to lean Jacoby Myers here, too. I do like Michael Wilson versus Washington. I think that you see him get a little bit more involved. Roshan Johnson and DeAndre Swift combined don't make one good running back yet, in my opinion. I think that team will turn it around, though. I think Chicago is a team that really looks like they're in shambles right now. But I think by week 5 or 6, they're really going to start turning things around. But I don't think it's going to be this week. So I'm not with the running backs quite yet. But, I mean, if you're in a trading league, go try to get you some DeAndre Swift. I feel like that's going to be a grab you can get really cheap right now. I think there's a lot of people down on him. But I'm really not on the Roshan Johnson train quite yet, because I think you're going to see a lot more stuff coming out of Caleb Williams' legs before this. But I think like I said, I think you're going to see that team really settle it down. They've got the weapons. They got the things to get it done. But for this, to me, for today, I'm going to go Myers, and I'm ready to get hurt again. Give me Rashid Shaheed. What do you think here, Joe?
Well said by Jeff on Shaheed last week. That really was. That game in general was heartbreaking. I mean, Barkley scored those touchdowns at the end, or that touchdown, but that should have been, I was thinking that's a 27-24 game, and just another example of these assholes going for it on 4th down and not kicking field goals when they should. And you got a 13-12 game between 2 of the better offenses and worst defenses in the league. That whole game just drove me nuts last week. You know, Roshan Johnson, I'm reading about him now. He had 12 touches last week, so they increased his activity and his touches last week for 63 yards, and he could be in store for maybe something towards that. Now, granted, he didn't have a touch this season before last week. So last week was the first week he got on the board. It's a tough one because that offensive line is so bad. And I also kind of agree on the DeAndre Swift thing once they kind of get that whole offense and the offensive line right in general. If it was PPR, I feel like you'd have to start Mooney based on his last couple of weeks, because he's been, I feel like Mooney's a great DFS play the way he's been for Atlanta, but he's not as appetizing, not in a PPR. He's not, as a rule, career-wise, a big touchdown guy either. I definitely put Jacoby Myers in one of these 2 spots. The other one, I mean, if it was last week at 11:24, it's Shaheed and it's a no-brainer. Do you let one game impact you that much? I think I'm going to err with Jeff here and go Roshan Johnson with Myers. I like the double-digit touches. Swift was no better last week than he was the first 2 weeks. And I like that it was 4 catches for Roshan, too, on top of the carries. So I'm going to go Jacoby Myers and Roshan Johnson because it's no PPR. Mooney would be in there for me if it was PPR.
So we brought up Johnson with Swift, and we think about Swift last year with Philadelphia, who looked pretty good. We had high expectations for Swift going to this seemingly great Chicago-looking offense, at least on paper. Flip that over to Barkley going to Philly. Dude, Barkley is all of a sudden the new McCaffrey this year. I mean, this guy is just straight money. 5 touchdowns in 3 games, and he's been over 30 FanDuel points 2 out of 3 the first 3 games. It's been unbelievable with Barkley, so he's truly a no-brainer, especially from a DFS standpoint, even though he's 9,700 on FanDuel. I don't mean to get off on a tangent on Barkley when that's not related to the question, but Roshan Johnson made me think of the Bears, which made me think of Swift, which made you think of the Eagles, which led me to Barkley. Anyway, go ahead.
I mean, last thing too. No, go, Mikey.
It's probably because of that anchor that they had at center last year, that Jason Kelsey guy, more than it was DeAndre Swift. That guy was terrible.
Swift was a good fantasy player last year. I had him on multiple teams, and he was pretty good and somewhat consistent for DeAndre Swift. But you're looking at his numbers this year, and again, I would say that I probably like Swift more than the average person. I mean, Johnson had 8 carries for 30 yards last week. Swift has been double-digit carries every week this year, and 30 yards is his top so far. And he's only got 6 catches this year, which is a little odd to me because – subscribing to what you always say, Mikey, and how he has historically been used, you would think that Caleb would be checking down to him a little more.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, especially with an offense as bad as they are, an offensive line as bad as they are, as fast as you'd have to go. Yeah, no, you'd think you'd see a whole lot more targets. I think Roshan Johnson's a great guy. I think he's a great play. I just don't think this is the week for it quite yet. But
I do think it's early
guys,
for him too.
I can dig it.
It's just tough with these other options.
Right. We got Boss Man. What's happening, Captain? We got pick 2 wide receiver, Christian Kirk, Deebo Samuel, Chris Godwin, Deontay Johnson, Joanna Jennings, and Darnell Mooney. Wow, Joe, we'll let you lead this one off, buddy.
These are a handful today. You know, like Christian Kirk, just kind of not to get off, but Kirk was another guy who really became pretty fantasy consistent last year. As far as getting you 5-6 grabs a week, he had some big games and he scored. And this year, it hasn't felt that way. Obviously, Jacksonville hasn't been very good in general. I'll tell you what, I look at, to me, this decision is a 3-way call between Samuel, Godwin, and Deontay Johnson. I don't think you can start Jennings with both Samuel and Ayuk playing this week, despite the big week he had last week. I think you have to play Godwin. I'm pretty sure you two would definitely agree with that. He's just been phenomenal so far this year. I kind of want to start Deontay Johnson here just because it's that Andy Dalton thing, and they did it last week, and it's not a horrible matchup for them this week. But again, can you start? And Johnson is a little banged up, though he's playing. So the question is, you go Godwin. Can you start Deontay Johnson over Deebo Samuel? Mikey, it sounds like you're going to say yes to that.
Maybe not over Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel coming back does make me think that, but again, I feel like he might be in more of a decoy status today. Slide it one over to the right for me. I got Chris Godwin. I got Deontay Johnson. I've got Juwan Jennings. Juwan Jennings, even with those other 2 guys on the field, has still been productive this year. He's had 3 good games, 3 decent games anyways, where he's getting the targets. I think he does it again today, and I think until I see a good, healthy Deebo Samuel out there, I'm really not too worried about his production on the line. Darnell Mooney is another guy that I really like. I know in a PPR, he's going to be a lot better than in the standard, but I agree 100% with the Christian Kirk call. I mean, it's like, where's that guy been this whole season? Where's that whole team been this whole season? So we may see a resurgence in him because they've got to do something there to start getting things put back together, or else they're going to be on a very long slope. and they're going to be vying for that first-round pick next year if they don't start putting some of these things together. But for me, I agree with Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin's been huge. Deontay Johnson, he's always banged up. He's always playing. He's one of the best separation guys in the game. Give me Deontay Johnson right there with Andy Dalton throwing him the ball. And yeah, for me, it's a tough one between Juwan Jennings and Deebo Samuel, but I'm taking Juwan here.
No, only 2 though. You pick 3.
Well, that's because I'm going to play all 3. Then I'm going to go Godwin and Johnson here. Godwin and Johnson for me. Then leaning into those 2.
So as I look at this, number one, Christian Kirk is the Tyler Boyd of Jacksonville. I can't stand the guy. I didn't like him when he was in Arizona. I don't like him since he's been in Jacksonville. Oh, he's the number 1 receiver over there. He's never put up good fantasy numbers. I mean, he might have had a few games here and there, but God, I can't stand that guy. So the funny thing is Godwin's been very consistent and been a great target for Baker Mayfield, and they've been humming. He's still somehow a bit of a discount on DFS, so I'm automatically going Chris Godwin. The funny thing, so you're looking at Deontay Johnson and Juwan Jennings, both who had huge weeks last week. I think Jennings was more of a kind of a fluke because of the injuries. Joe, you look like you had a little.
No, so you're not considering Deebo there?
I'm not actually.
Okay.
So I'm not.
So both of you guys are the same on that one.
So and follow my logic on this one. Deontay Johnson again. Don't fall in the same pitfalls, I guess, as what I'm talking about, but I'm going to do it anyways. Deontay Johnson, 14 targets, I believe, 8 receptions, 122 yards, and a touchdown from the Red Rocket, Andy Dalton. He has turned that offense around. Deontay Johnson is the guy over there, and they're playing against Cincinnati at home. You know the Red Rocket wants to beat the team that gave up on him. So I'm going Godwin and Deontay Johnson, and I'm staying away from San Francisco. They're at New England. It's a 10.5 or over 10-point favorite. So this will be a healthy dose of Jordan Mason. I don't think they're going to be airing it out too much. I doubt Deebo will get too many carries if he does get any at all. So, and then Mooney's, I think Atlanta's putting it together, but he's not the guy over there. Mooney's going to get you maybe 5 catches. So Godwin, Deontay Johnson for the reasons I said.
I'm sold. I didn't think about the Andy Dalton Bengal thing. I'm in on that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Anytime we can get ourselves a little bit of a revenge game, I'm all in. I forgot about that as well. I love how you call it the Red Rocket too.
And speaking of that, which is also why I'm high on Aaron Jones today. You got Jones going back to Green Bay. So I think he's going to put up some numbers and say, hey, I'm way better than Josh Jacobs, man. And here's why. And I'm going to put it in your face at Green Bay. And he's going to do a Lambeau leap in his Minnesota Vikings uniform.
Well, we got a little bit of a break in questions. What about other guys you're high on? Let's go ahead and rock out some DFS lineups right here. I don't know if either one of you guys are ready to get theirs up.
I'm ready to go.
I'm definitely ready on mine.
I can even share a screen, so hold on a second here.
You're good, buddy.
So you want to go first, Mikey? You want to share and go first?
Yeah, absolutely. You got mine pulling up right here. It's right there. So I got the guys going out there today. I feel like we're going to see now, like I said, I feel like Jacksonville's going to do a little bit more damage than they did last time. I think that they're going to be in a game that's possibly kind of a higher score shootout. I'm really high on CJ Stroud this week. At 7,800, he was pretty expensive, but I think he actually has himself one of those legendary games that make us remember why he's so fantasy relevant. And I got Nico Collins at the flex end at the 7,700 to come up with that stack. Speaking of Aaron Jones, there he is, Minnesota at Green Bay. Give me that revenge. I'm going to go ahead and take Aaron Jones. I think he's going to run all over him. Zach Moss at Carolina. Now, I know I've been saying don't be playing Moss, and I know I've got him right here in my DFS. I think the volume is there. I think it's going to be there. I think they're going to have to be a team that kind of like Jacksonville. They're going to have to start stringing some things together, making drives last a little bit longer, keep that defense off the field. I think that's going to be one thing that you're going to have to get going there is that running game, and I think Zach Moss is going to be a big part of that. We got Jaden Reed in there at the wide receiver position. I think that this guy, they just find a way to get him the ball one way or the other. I really like Jaden Reed again. Even though it's against Minnesota, I still think he's going to be productive enough to make it a good move. We got Quentin Johnston for the Chargers at home against Kansas City. Herbert's going to be there. Quentin Johnston's been scoring touchdowns. Let's go. We got Juwan Jennings at home against New England. Like I said, man, this guy's even still being productive, even when they're playing or even when Deebo Samuels and Brandon Ayuk are out there, he's still getting targets out there. Then we got Dalton Kincaid. I think this is going to be the week we really see this guy kind of start separating himself from the pack as far as where all those other touchdowns are going to be going. I think it's going to be Shakir and Kincaid and Cooks. I think it's going to be those three, and it's going to be those 3 point forward. I think those guys are dealing. And it's funny, I was watching a bunch of people talking about how Josh Allen is a way better quarterback without high pressure receivers out there. I'm like, man, we were saying that 3 weeks before the season even started.
You did say that.
And then Jets at home against Denver. I'm sorry, Denver. This is actually going to be a real challenge for you guys. And I don't know if you're going to do very well with that challenge. Give me the Jets. I think they were starting to put it together a lot more last week. And that is my DFS lineup. Go ahead and shred it apart, boys.
Well, listen, I'll start it, and just because we had on that last question, Juwan Jennings was part of it. I'm kind of down on him only because a lot more people are healthy, and I'm assuming you're not the only one who's going to take this guy this week just because he had a monster week last week. You get in that pitfall of just judging a guy based on the previous week alone, which is exactly what I'm doing with Deontay Johnson, by the way. So I'm a little bit kind of going against my logic, but Jennings, I'm not necessarily high on because of the health of some people. So, but and I don't know, man. I think Bo Nix and Sean Payton, they might have found their stride or start to put things together a little bit. But I mean, outside of that, I can't necessarily argue with that, especially the Dalton Kincaid pick. Tight ends so far this year have just been dreadful. And at least Kincaid put one in the end zone last week and got. You get Kelsey, McBride, Kincaid. A lot of those top tier tight ends have not gotten the end zone until last week, and I think Kincaid keeps rolling there, Mike. So I like those, and I said what I said about Aaron Jones, and I agree with you there. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, I think real quick that Denver Tampa Bay game. I mean, the Philly New Orleans game surprised me the way it played. I was freaking shocked by Denver going into Tampa Bay and not only winning that game, they dominated the whole freaking game pretty much from the first second of it to the last second of it. That was insane, I thought, based on how both of those teams had played the first couple of weeks of the year. I do still like that Jet defense today, though. I'm not sure Bo Nix repeats that. And right now, the Jets have more momentum. The Jets will have a more positive crowd in that building today than they've had in probably since the first 4 plays of last season. Prior to that, almost a decade. So I feel like the Meadowlands is going to be juiced up for the Jets today. The rest of this, I feel like you're starting to see some guys slowly creep up from a consistency perspective. And that's a Nico Collins. That's an Aaron Jones. I'm really loving Aaron Jones this week. The longer this show goes on, just from all the points we've all made. So I like it there. I do like Stroud this week, too. I think this is a good week for Moss. I hesitate on spending 68 on Jennings, 68 FanDuel. 6,800 for FanDuel on Jennings for all the reasons that we talked about. But you pretty much know he will get some red zone targets, so we'll see what he does with them there. Jaden Reed, I'm never comfortable taking this guy, but he's just starting to become the most relevant player on their offense, and they do all sorts of different things with him. So he had that huge first game, kind of came back down, but he's going to get his quarterback back, and I love that they give him the ball behind, under center a couple times a game too, it seems like. So no, we're a little hot, and I hesitate to say that from a DFS perspective, but I'm pretty sure we all cashed last week with that main slate. So I'm kind of feeling good, and I like that lineup overall, as I did last week with all of ours.
Yeah, actually, this is going to be week 3 out of 3 that we've cashed out in our DFS lineup so far. Now, that is with modifications. You got to follow us on Twitter to get those Sunday finals in a lot of these cases, or watch the show, watch the Blitz. How dare you have to do that, and catch some of our later ads, because man, football's an ever-changing scope, especially when you got injuries and things like that out in the landscape. For instance, when I picked this lineup, Juwan Jennings I was a little higher on because Deebo Samuels was just non-existent. There was no chance he was going to play this week. Then all of a sudden, Tuesday afternoon, they said he's spotted at practice. Wednesday afternoon, he's spotted in contact practice, and it was all over from there. So, I mean, we weren't expecting that guy at all, but football can change. So, Joseph, my man, you ready to go ahead and get yours going on there?
Yeah, let's do this. And then, Jeff, I got you ready for when I'm done here. So DraftKings this week, we're starting with Jaden Daniels at quarterback. I don't know, man. He's just one of those guys that I've gotten infatuated with real quick this year from a fantasy perspective. No Eckler. I'd like to see him pick up and continue the momentum with McLaren that he finally got last week, and then I just want to see this guy run and get me over 20 again. Still 6,500, which is a very fair quarterback price on DraftKings. Mike, you said it before. I just can't not play Barkley right now. I like Hall, I like Taylor, I like a few of these other guys too, but I just can't play Barkley right now. And the fact that he's only 200 more than Hall and 300 more than Taylor, like, you got to take advantage of that, because another big week from Barkley, he's probably going to go up to $9,000 on DraftKings next week. Brian Robinson Jr., we talked about. No Eckler. Robinson Jr. has been good with Eckler there. So let's see if we can get this to work here. He's been double digits every week. He's got touchdowns 2 out of 3. Love him this week. That's a pretty good matchup too. Only 6,100 feels like a pretty good price for him. Jamar Chase, he finally woke up last week. The Bengals are, at Carolina, they clearly need the win this week. You got to at least believe that Chase will have another big game. Kind of funny that it's only 7 targets is his target high so far this year, when you're used to being for him closer to double digits each week. My cheaper play of the week, going to take advantage of some injuries in Philadelphia. No A.J. Brown, no Devonta Smith. They do have to throw the ball a little bit, even with Barkley. I'm going to take a shot on Dotson at what was he, 45 or 5,000. He had 3 targets last week. I know Goddard kind of stepped up, but Devonta Smith played most of that game last week. Without him, I got to believe Dotson gets some more targets. It'll be a matter of what he does with them. Darnell Mooney, again, DraftKings, to remind everybody, is a full point PPR. So, 7 and 8 targets the last 2 weeks. I'm liking that. He's even seen the end zone. So I feel pretty good there for 4,400. Taking advantage of the injury in Cleveland to their starting tight end, Atkins had 7 targets last week, which is pretty good. We know Watson can't get the ball downfield, so I like Atkins there for only $3,000, which is about as cheap as you're going to get a player on DraftKings. Chuba Hubbard for Carolina. Going back to the whole Andy Dalton thing, I like Deontay Johnson. Hubbard was huge last week, both in the air and on the ground. 169 total yards, 26 touches. Probably won't do exactly that again, but, against the Cincinnati team that's kind of a mess, and Dalton having that kind of revenge game on his mind, I like Chuba. I will say Najee Harris was right there with me on this one, because I believe Harris was, 5,600. And with no Jalen Warren, I did think about Harris. My issue with Harris is I just feel like he's never averaging 8 yards a carry on 20 carries. It's just not what he does. So I just feel like his ceiling is like 90 or 100 yards and a touchdown today, which is a great day. But Chuba proved last week he can do more than that, and they're the same price. And then, no Devonta Adams. The offense is a little bit of a mess. I'm going to try the Cleveland defense, 3,500. Despite Cleveland being a mess offensively, their defense has still been pretty good so far this year. And I just thought for that price range, they were kind of the best you were going to get based on some of these other matchups. What do you guys think?
It's a love affair, Chuba. I tell you, man, just Chuba. The name is just hilarious in itself. You actually said it, Joe. That's the one thing I'll maybe kind of pick on. Yeah, okay, the guy had a monster week. They got Andy Dalton. They're on a roll, if you can call one game on a roll. So I do like Deontay Johnson. Hubbard, to repeat what he did. You said you had Najee, who's around that price, as an option. You said, okay, yeah, he gets 20 carries and he doesn't average 8 yards a carry. The bottom line is the guy does get 20 carries and he's going to touch the ball, especially because Jalen Warren isn't there. Can you count on Chuba, whatever you want to call him, Hubbard from Carolina, having 2 good games back to back? I don't think you can. I think maybe Najee and then the Pittsburgh, they're indoors. They're playing against Indianapolis. I think that's a pretty good matchup for him to get a lot of touches. So I think, to me, that's a little bit of a better option that you even mentioned than Hubbard. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I actually like Chuba Hubbard a lot this week, but I do also like Najee Harris. I like the matchup. a lot more. But I do like that Chubba Hubbard is a guy that if you drop the card, you've got Hubba Hubba, and you're just good to go right after that. But no, I think Chubba Hubbard proved it last week that he's a solid back and he's getting stuff done. I don't mind that play today. I think Chubba Hubbard's going to be a good play until they decide to, for some reason, put Bryce Young back in there, which will likely be when Andy Dalton loses a leg or something to that effect, which is probably going to happen, by the way. Andy Dalton's like 95 years old. But yeah, no, I like Chubba Hubbard there. I do actually like this lineup a lot. I like having Saquon in there. I like having Chase in there. Seems like we're getting a lot of good value at the lower end of things. Yeah, I like it. Now, there is Cincinnati's run defense isn't exactly the worst, but they've been playing a lot more than they'd like to be playing, so they're easy to kind of run all over. Yeah, I like it, dude. I like this lineup a lot.
There you go. Thank you, my friend. All right, Jeffrey.
Yeah, we can jump into mine, and I had a little overlap from both of you guys. So
hold on 1 second. Give me a minute.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, we can.
I got it. It's weird though. You got to stop and then go on the actual tab. So I got to change from FanDuel, DraftKings to FanDuel.
Yeah, I mean that's fine. I mean, first and foremost, it's going to be Jaden Daniels at QB, and Mike and I said this week one. If you remember, Mike, Jaden Daniels was 7,000 on FanDuel, and both of us said he'll never be that cheap, and he has not been that cheap since. So, and dipped down a little bit last week, but the guy's been over 28 FanDuel points for 2 out of 3 weeks. He has an 80% completion percentage. He's not throwing for 300 yards, but he's beyond efficient, and he's getting it done in the running game. So you can't deny what. And actually, we were kind of comparing this a little bit during the week, where it's funny you have Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud. And then this year you got Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels, and the number 2 pick seemingly has worked out so much better than the number 1. Now, Caleb Williams is a great talent, and most of that is not his fault because of the very poor offensive line for the Chicago Bears. So I think Williams is much more talented than Bryce Young, but it's kind of funny how that's worked out for both of those. Barkley,
McLaurin, not to interrupt you, but that dime to McLaurin last week. Holy crap, man. That pass was just money. The throw, the catch, all of it. But keep going. Sorry, man. That was just all I can think about when I think about Jaden Daniels is that damn dime to Terry McLaurin. My God.
The guy's proven to be certainly worth it, and I'm sure that the Bears, he wouldn't be who he is if he had been picked by Chicago. I don't think anybody would be. But anyway, Saquon. Like I said, Saquon, man, he has been the McCaffrey of last year. Saquon is that this year, just with the touches and what Saquon is doing with him. So, yeah, I get it. He's 9,700 on FanDuel, but you got to pay up for him because he's just simply getting the points. And I didn't hear either of you guys mention anybody from either P. Ryan or Carson Steele. I mean, the bottom line is that Pacheco's still out. Carson Steele had 17 carries last week. He turned it into 7. That's over 4 yards a carry. He didn't get the end zone, but they're at the Chargers. They're a touchdown favorite. I expect Steele to get somewhere in the vicinity of 15 carries again, and hopefully he can get in the end zone, which would be great for a value play like 5,800. So, and again, if you're going a little bit pricier, then you got to go value. And we said it with Mooney. I forget if Joe had him in his lineup or we were talking about him before. But Mooney, the Atlanta offense is kind of putting that together. They're at home against New Orleans. He's been getting more looks. I mean, that offense is going to be something. I mean, they have Drake London, Mooney, Bijan Robinson. There's some good weapons, and once they put it together with Kirk Cousins, I think there's going to be a pretty good lineup. So you got DJ Moore. Not that the Bears' offense has been all that great, but DJ Moore is going to be your consistent 10 target guy. I mean, you can see it there. He's got 28 targets in the first 3 games. I don't see that changing. He's probably going to get another 10 targets this week, and we'll just see what he does with them. Hopefully he can put up some decent points there. Other wide receiver, I went with it. I fell for it. Like I said, 14 targets, 8 receptions, 122 yards, and 1 touchdown with our boy, the Red Rocket, manning the helm. So Deontay Johnson, we brought it up. Andy Dalton looking to put it to the Cincinnati Bengals at home. I think Deontay Johnson probably gets in the end zone again this week. Tight end, Dalton Kincaid has not done much up until last week. Let's hope that trend continues because actually, can we talk about the Buffalo Bills for a minute? And I will say, and Joe mentioned that, we had talked about the Bills preseason about how they would do. I actually didn't think they would be this good. I think Mike nailed it when he said the Diggs trade will help them. I thought it would help out Houston a hell of a lot more, but I think Mike was spot on saying they will get better without Diggs there because there's not the pressure to get him the ball and they're just free to spread it around. So I tip my cap to you, Mikey, as far as that call, because that could not have been more right as we sit here now. Flex, Aaron Jones. I said, I expect him to jump or do the Lambeau leap with his Minnesota Vikings jersey on. Whether the crowd embraces him or not, that should be interesting to see if and when he does get in the end zone. But I have a feeling that he will try to do that if he does. But Minnesota's just been an interesting one, not necessarily burning it up on offense, but it's been a turnaround for Sam Darnold. And they've had the opportunity because the defense has worked out so well. And then defense, special teams, you get the Rams. They're at Chicago. Not necessarily, a top pick for me, but given how again, bad the offensive line is for the Bears, I can expect some sacks maybe and hopefully get some points out of the Rams defense. Your guys' thoughts on that maybe?
What do you got, Mikey?
So I do like this lineup outside. So Carson Steele, I like what he was doing. I like the opportunity that he has, right? Like, I think that this guy should be a slam dunk play every single time, but he just hasn't been proving to be that. I just don't think that Kansas City is firing on all cylinders offensively, right? And I don't think that they have to. I think that's a team that can still win football games without having to really try very hard, without expending too much effort. It kind of reminds me of the tortoise and the hare, right? They're the tortoise and they're just kind of limping their way along until the finish line, until they win the damn Super Bowl again, because they're good enough. They don't really need anybody to go stand out and show off productively. But outside of that, I really like the lineup. Maybe the Rams defense, they haven't really done a whole lot this year. Without Arnold out there, I don't think that they're that good. I think Chicago really starts putting it together this week. But other than that, I really like this lineup, and I just love seeing Deontay Johnson in your lineup. That makes me happy.
Right on. And by the way, and I know we got a handful of people who watch. My boy Matt, who I work with, Matt, I know you were disappointed we didn't get the show last night. You texted me and said, "Oh man, what's going on?" I said to tune in, Matt. If you're currently listening, my friend, in the comments on YouTube, please just drop the word firecracker, and it's an inside joke. If you're there, bro, throw that in. Hopefully you're watching the show, and I apologize we didn't get to this last night, but hopefully this is making up for it. Anyways, Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I like this. I think the Chargers are going to try to muck up that game today and make it kind of ugly with their running game based on how their offense is operating right now. I do think it's a good opportunity for Steele to potentially get in the end zone. A couple of things, if you play both sites, both FanDuel and DraftKings, like a couple things to think about. Barkley is $1,700 more on FanDuel than he is on DraftKings. I think we've figured out in the past, if you scale the two salary scenarios that each site does, because they're different, but if you scale them, I think the average difference is for a FanDuel player to be like $600 to $700 more. So at $1,700 more, if you play both sites, you're better off starting Barkley on DraftKings than FanDuel. Not that I'm saying it's a bad play here at all, but if you play both, play them on DraftKings and sign somebody else on FanDuel to take advantage of that value. And I would kind of say the same thing with DJ Moore too, because one other difference between FanDuel and DraftKings is a full point PPR on DraftKings and a half point PPR on FanDuel. And as you can see with DJ Moore here, the 8 and the 6 receptions and the 20 targets over the last 2 weeks, he's another one you can take advantage of that PPR a little more on DraftKings. Well,
and I'll pause you there. And so I might look at maybe putting somebody else in for DJ Moore. He hasn't gotten the end zone yet. He does get the targets, but man, he has not gotten in the end zone. Hopefully he will, because I really like DJ Moore. I don't know, maybe your thoughts at 6,500. I might be looking at another option, or perhaps kind of reworking a couple of the wide receivers to maybe free somebody else up. What do you think?
I think you're good, to be honest. I mean, you could float McLaurin again because he had the big week last week and hope that he does it again. But I think Moore is your safest bet. I mean, 10 targets 2 weeks in a row. And they're home against the Rams, and they looked a little better last week as a whole offense. I think I'd personally stick with Moore there.
That throws like a 2.8% touchdown probability out there for DJ Moore. I mean, when you're getting targets like that and the volume like that, it's only a matter of time, right? Like today should be the day he scores mathematically anyways, right? If you go by law of averages and things like that, a guy getting that kind of force-fed targets, it's only a matter of time before they find red zone. It's only a matter of time before you start seeing those red zone targets. DJ Moore all the way. I like that pick a lot. I like DJ Moore a lot today, especially with Keenan Allen coming back. I think I like all three of those guys. I think it's going to be nasty what Caleb Williams is going to be able to do with that offense once they start getting things clicking right there.
So you think today is the coming out party?
I do. I really do. I think Chicago really starts ironing down, starting to see that offense sit tight and start doing things a lot better. They looked like they were kind of starting to put it together at the end of the game last week, a lot better than they were the week before. And so I think you're just going to see it. Like I said, to me, it's a big difference between when you look at like Bryce Young versus how this guy's being brought in. Like Bryce Young named his number one receiver last year.
Exactly. Thielen, I think it was Thielen.
It was Adam Thielen. So if Adam Thielen's your go-to guy, and not to take anything away from him, he's probably the best number 2 in the game, but number 2 in the game, not number 1. So, I mean, like, you got to give a guy a 1 before you start getting him comfortable. You got to get him a line that'll block for him. You got to get him a defense that'll keep him on the field, all kinds of stuff. So.
And quick question, and this is not a question that deals with DFS, but as from a matchup standpoint, I mean, obviously we got some great games, some good division games this week. I think for the one I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens is Kansas City at the Chargers. It's in LA, and to me, Kansas City has seemingly gotten lucky the first few weeks to be 3-0. They certainly have not played tremendous football yet. They keep winning. The Chargers kind of let me down against Pittsburgh last week. I thought they would take care of business, but Pittsburgh is looking better than I expected them to look. I'm curious your thoughts on that game, or maybe if there's a game or two that stick out in your minds or that you're looking forward to checking out this week, obviously. And then another one in Minnesota, Green Bay, some good in division games there. I don't know your thoughts, guys, or what you're looking forward to.
Yeah, I like that Minnesota Green Bay game. I like the Philly Tampa rematch from the playoffs last year. I'm really curious to see how Tampa plays this week after that egg they laid last week home against Denver. And then the other one that I think is, and I do think the Monday night game, I mean, what a run of nighttime primetime games so far this year. It's been insane how good they've been, other than maybe that Jet Patriot game. But you got that Monday night game is Seattle, Detroit, which is relevant. But I think the most relevant game of the week is Sunday night, Buffalo and Baltimore. They're just a lot. They're just, the result of that game, I feel like will go, Buffalo keeps this train going at Baltimore. That'd be pretty impressive. Baltimore comes back and wins. All of a sudden they're 2-2 and you're feeling way different about them than you are right this second.
And I'll let Mike, I'll let you get your points in, but here's another one too. Both teams are 1-2, but could not feel further apart than New England, San Francisco. Who thought the Niners would be 1-2 at this point? I get it. They've had injuries, but both of them are 1-2 teams, but it feels just like there's such an enormous gap. It's not even funny.
I think San Francisco really, I mean, like when you rely on one guy to do most of your offensive work and you lose that guy, you're going to see direct effects from it. 1-2 is I think because they're not losing these games terribly, right? They're just not winning these games at the end. And I think Christian McCaffrey is such a game separator in that regard that you're going to see teams like that lose it. And I think it is the exact opposite end. I don't think there's a Christian McCaffrey over here. I don't think that there's the good offense over there. I think they should be 1-2. The fact they have one is actually kind of surprising to me right now.
No doubt. But in any case,
that Minnesota Green Bay game is a cool game today. It's hard not to kind of like where both those teams have come from last year with Green Bay, obviously, this year with Minnesota. It's cool that Jordan Love's back, and it's hard not to be infatuated with Sam Darnold a little bit. And now you get Jordan Addison back this week, so now he's going to be throwing to both Jefferson and Addison with, like how Jeff said earlier, a very motivated Aaron Jones in the backfield. One thing when I was looking at Aaron Jones' stats on your lineup, Jeff, 3 games, he's had 2 great games. He sucked against San Francisco, and they still beat San Fran, which I guess is a testament to Darnold in that defense. So curious to see if Minnesota keeps it going.
Yeah, I think Minnesota's got I think their defense is for real. We got a flex question. We got Steele, Ayuk, or Shakir. And I'll go ahead and let you lead this one off, Jeff.
Well, I mean, I said what I said about Steele earlier, and I'm kind of sticking with that. Not to mention, I think we'll get more opportunity. Not that Ayuk and Shakir are bad options, but both receivers, we always say, kind of tie goes to the running back, and I just think more opportunity is going to be with Steele, even though they still got P. Ryan there, but he still had 17 carries. I expect him to have about 15 carries this week versus what could Ayuk or Shakir get you? Ayuk might get you maybe 5-6 receptions perhaps, and the same thing with Shakir, if that. So I'd say just from an opportunity standpoint, I'd go Steele because I expect him to have the 15 touches at least.
Joe, what do you think?
Oh, man. I mean, through 3 weeks, if you go by production, Shakir is the no-brainer from, how all 3 of these guys have fared. It's pretty incredible to see how consistent Shakir has been, especially because Allen, who's been great, but he's been all over the place. Coleman has one good game, then they don't look at him much. Kincaid goes back and forth. Shakir seems to be the one consistent guy getting targets every week. At the same time, it's hard to sit Ayuk for Shakir. To Jeff's point, Kansas City starting running back, their offense isn't as wide open as it used to be. It's hard to sit him too. I don't know. What do you think, Mike?
For me, I'm leaning Shakir here because his hips don't lie. He's very fast. He's very good. He's been scoring touchdowns
2 times.
Finally, I knew I'd get Jeff out of here one way or the other. No, I really do like Shakir. I think he is the number 1 on that team. I think he's been the guy that's getting targeted even on the bomb. So give me Shakir. Ayuk hasn't done anything to really give me going, neither his Steele. I think I agree with you. The volume will definitely be his way, but I see more points coming out of Shakir. What do you say here, Jeff? Or you already did. What do you say here, Joe?
Yeah, I never gave an answer. I don't, man.
I'm thrown way off by the hips don't lie comment, dude. I don't even know what to say at this point.
Oh, I love it.
Wait, we're not above a Shakira reference on this show.
That's true. So we got 2 90s songs. Actually, Shakira wasn't 90s, but you got "It's a Love Affair," Chubba, and then "Hips Don't Lie." So
I guess on
this music today.
I guess on this one I'd float Steele, but I'll tell you something right now. If Steele doesn't do it this week, I don't think I'm playing him anymore. And I played him DFS last week, and I'm going to flirt with playing him a little bit this week. But if he goes 2 weeks and does nothing, I'm going to chalk their running game up to being kind of by committee until Pacheco comes back.
Yeah, I like Pacheco on that offense, and that's about it right there. So, again, like I said, the volume will definitely be in Steele's way. I just don't think he's doing much with the volume. We got Jalen Hurts, Jaden Daniels. He better not. Then we got the next one. Just kidding. Dude, would you play Jalen Hurts or Jaden Daniels? We'll start with you, Joe.
Well, this one's mine, full disclosure.
Oh, okay. Well, then we'll turn it to Jeff. Jeff, go ahead and answer this one again.
I honestly think that this is an ezy one with Jaden Daniels because I really like Jalen Hurts. We know what he's capable of, but because you got Barkley there now, man, the guy is leaning on Barkley so much that, okay, can he get the whatever the hell they call it, the Philly push or whatever the hell they call it? Can you get him at the 1 or 2 yard line to get Hurts in the end zone? Sure. but Jaden Daniels is much more likely to get in the end zone as a rushing quarterback than Jalen Hurts because of the Barkley factor. So to me, I think this is easy going Jaden Daniels.
I actually agree with that. I think Jaden Daniels is the guy right here. I think both these guys are going to get you good points, but I don't think that you see – I mean, Jalen Hurts can't run as much as he used to. Jaden Daniels will be having this conversation within probably about a month or two about how he can't just keep running the ball out there like that, because you go run up against these like 700-pound tanks, and these tanks are running back at you at 500 miles an hour and smashing you. You can't do it as much. So for me, Jaden Daniels, until he experiences the heartache that is losing one of your legs or something like that to one of these giant linebackers, I think he's going to continuously make those decisions where he goes out there and sacrifices his body a little bit to try to get that win. It's just part of having a heart, man. And so until then, Jaden Daniels is my guy. And that's not to say Jalen Hurts isn't out there wanting to do that, right? Because we all know that he wants to win. He's a competitor as well. It's just he's not going to be able to maintain that, and he knows that. He's learned his lesson. He's had that 700.
Plus, no Smith or Brown today. I'm not sure I can pull the trigger on this if they're healthy. But without their two top wide receivers, it does feel like this would be the week to bench him for a guy like Daniels.
Yeah. And again, I mean, that's going to be a question that I don't even want to have to answer week on, week out. I might be trying to trade one of those guys if I possibly can, just to get that decision off. Especially, man, you could sell Jaden Daniels high right now, and that might be the time.
That's what I was trying to do.
I was
trying to get Marvin Harrison for Jaden Daniels straight up today, but the guy didn't bite. I'm kind of surprised.
Oh, my goodness sakes. Single quarterback leagues, man, that makes it tough. We got Jacoby Myers or Tyler Johnson. I believe this one's yours, Jeff, so I'm going to start off with you, Joe.
I'm going to go Jacoby Myers here. I without Adams and what he did last year there, and I like him to be the main event there, and I think they're going to bounce back a little bit offensively, versus the disaster that they played last week. So I'll go Myers here.
Same, and Tyler Johnson just didn't seem like he was getting involved too much. It seems like that offense is definitely missing their key pieces. Tyler Johnson hasn't been a guy that really stepped up and been that guy. So give me Jacoby Myers as well. Although it is pretty close, I do expect to also turn it around with Tyler Johnson a little bit. And Jeff, do you have anything to add on that?
Well, I just think maybe, I was asking that probably before, and this is why we appreciate the injury updates, off the jump here from Joseph, because I think I asked that before I realized Adams was out. So it makes much more sense now to have Myers in there versus Johnson. To me, that's a no-brainer just because of that.
Absolutely. And that's like I said, that's why you want to make sure you follow us the next day, because what we were saying last night at 8:00 isn't necessarily what we're saying this morning at 8:00. And it's not because we're drunk, although it could be because we were drunk. You just never know with this kind of wild ragtag group of guys right here. We got our guy here. Here comes the CAC. He says, Komet, Spears, Naylor, Whittingham, or Williams? Jay Williams from Denver. Jeff, go ahead and lead us off on this one right here.
Wow. These are wow. Okay.
Well, wait a minute. Hold on real quick. Jeff's owed a little credit here before he starts, because I don't think any of these guys, maybe other than Williams, has even been mentioned yet this year. But last week, Jeff hit Naylor on the head from a DFS perspective, and I believe he produced with a touchdown. So I got to give you props right there real quick.
Yeah. And
yeah. Absolutely nailed it.
and apparently the term that we just got from Joseph is Naylor on the head. So yeah. Hit Naylor right on the head, man. Yeah, we absolutely got them. I'll tell you what, because of that, Naylor right on the head. That's my answer. Boom, done.
Gotcha. Okay, we're going with Naylor. What do you say here, Joe?
I don't know, because Addison's back. So as much as as far as it would be the perfect segue to also go Naylor, I don't know. This is a tough one.
Be a perfect segue to also go Naylor. Yeah.
I mean,
I'll go Naylor
Mike,
too.
Would you like to also go Naylor?
Yeah.
Well, if everybody's on Naylor, I'm not going to want anything to do with that.
You
Yeah,
Naylor. You got Naylor.
Okay, where am I going here? Christ. I mean, Javonte Williams, I guess. I don't know. Mike, you're the Williams. What do you do? You go Williams?
For me, Cole Kmet has had just 2 straight weeks. We went from 2 targets to 5 targets to 10 targets. Last week he was able to turn those 10 targets into 9 catches, about 97 yards and a touchdown. I'm going to lean here. It's weird to flex a tight end for me in this instance, but I feel like I'm going to flex the tight end in this instance. Denver running backs. The question was it going to be Javonte Williams? Was it going to be Jaleel McLaughlin? Was it going to be Austin? Who was it going to be that was coming in there and going to be able to run the ball? And the answer is none of them. None of them are running the football with any kind of incredible efficiency or anything like that. At least nothing that I can rely on out of my flex position. Naylor, I like him last week. This week with Addison back, not so much. He's going to be the third wheel there. Spears, I like here a little bit too, because Tajay Spears seems to be starting to take over that backfield, but he's not taking it over enough where I'm going to say Cole Kmet, who, like I said, 10 targets last week. You know what I love with rookies? I love tight ends and I love running backs. And
sorry, Mike, I didn't mean to interrupt, but that's my real answer, actually. Spears. I mean, you mentioned that, Tygo's a running back. We always said, so I'm going Spears. They're at Miami. Miami with Skylar Thompson there. Their offense is falling flat in his face, so I would have to assume that Tennessee will have more options. So I lean Spears just because of what you said as far as running back is concerned. So I know you kind of breezed over it, not necessarily your choice, but I think you kind of changed my mind as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're good. Yep. So Kmet's mine. What do you say here, Joe? What do you land on with that?
Yeah, you know what? I think I'm going to let you, because I'm not. This is a tough one. I think I'll err on your experience, and also I'll sway to Kmet here. I agree with you on the Denver running backs, and they're playing. Who is Denver playing this
Jets.
week? The Jets. That's a tough matchup for them too. I don't expect them to run the ball well at New York. So I like, if you take that away, you would imagine Kmet's going to get the ball in his hands the most out of those other guys. I agree with you on Spears, not there yet. So I'm going to, you got me on Cole Kmet.
There you go. I love it because it's the truth. If you look at production wise, and if you look at what most rookie quarterbacks do that aren't named CJ Stroud, for instance, I mean, CJ Stroud came out there, and even Dalton Schultz still had a pretty decent year last year. But I'd argue Devin Singletary definitely he still had an okay year, but it could have always been better as far as a running back to a rookie quarterback perspective goes. But that could be talent-wise. So that's 2 for Kmet, 1 for Spears. Guys, that puts us almost at an hour and a half on this one. Do we got anything else to add before we go ahead and kick this off into week 4, boys?
It's a big week. This is going to be a big week this week. I feel it. It's going to be a good week.
I think it's going to be a good week. I think it's going to be a balancing week. I think we're going to see a lot of things that are going to start being more of a trend, the rule instead of the exception. What do you say, Jeff?
Well, I'll end it with this because my hips don't lie. So I'm going to go Naylor because it's a love affair. Chubba. We'll end it with that.
Saw that coming.